Hello and welcome. The State Guard Association of the United States will hold its annual conference in Dayton, Ohio in 2023. That will include a national tactical interoperability communications exercise. We have dubbed it WILDCARD 23. This is the first of several briefings on that exercise for the participating organizations. For those who are not able to join in person, this is an opportunity to see what was going on, and if anybody needs to refer back to something that we recovered, this also presents that opportunity. Welcome all. I am Warrant Officer Curtin, the Ohio Military Reserve. And today I'm going to do a briefing on the COMEX that we're expecting to run for this year's State Guard Association annual conference. I'm expecting this to be a good time. Let's get started with the agenda. We're going to cover some administrative details. We'll talk a little bit about what gear we're expecting to have at the conference. I have some questions about that. I'll cover the focus of our training, the schedule for exercise, the parameters for the exercise, and then a little bit on preparation that should help everybody to be ready when the time comes. So just some quick things about the schedule. We've got a lot of people in different time zones. Trying to get everybody together is obviously a challenge. So thank you for everybody who was able to make it today. It looks like we've got about half of the group that's in. I got email from a couple others who were not able to join, but they'll be watching the video afterwards. So we'll be happy to share this information with them, of course. What I'd like to do is every other week have just a quick touch base, again, just a quick briefing. So it won't be a long time and there shouldn't be an awful lot of stuff for us to cover. We're going to try and keep this pretty quick. So the next one, if we go by the schedule for every other week, will take us to the 5th of October. I'm not able to make that at this time. So I propose that we would move that to Saturday. Again, 1600 Zulu, that will work for me. And if there are any problems with that, please email me, let me know about that, and we'll see if we can come up with a time that's more accommodating if that one just isn't going to work. We'll then go back to the Thursday schedule for the 19th of October. That'll be the last time that we have everybody together before we are actually in person at the conference. Any questions or comments that we need to deal with respect to the administrative details for this briefing schedule? All right, hearing none, we will move on then. And go on from there to the resources that we have at the conference. I happen to be familiar with this particular hotel, and one of the first things I was looking for is to see, do we have a place that we can get HF antenna systems up and running, because that's just generally the first thing that occurs to me anytime I go anywhere. But it looks like that's probably not the case. So there are some questions that we've got that will deal with things like where the exercise is actually being held, the room that we're going to be in terms of what capacity it has. And we're going to go with the assumption that there isn't going to be easy access to the outside. So there isn't a window nearby. There isn't a door nearby where we can run feed line outside. So for the purpose of our planning, we're going to assume that there's no exterior antenna. With respect to the size of the room, does anybody have information about that? Do we know anything about what that's going to look like at this stage? All right, no problem. We'll sort that out, obviously, and stay flexible. And I'll put in a query about that to see what we can report back at our next meeting. With respect to spectrum that we're going to be using for the exercise portion, it looks to me like without all the antennas and so on, and the fact that we're all pretty close together is going to make it possible for us to have some teams wandering around, get some separation there, but without requiring a bunch of fancy gear. With respect to licensees, it looks like we've got a fair number who are licensed, but we might not have enough amateur licensees who are able to get us on amateur spectrum for all of the teams that we have in operation. Of course, depending on the number who are actually active. So that's going to be an open question. We'll follow it up by email. And one of the things that I'm looking at is just the use of FRS. You know, those little FRS radios,
500 milliwatts. The antennas are terrible, but with as close as we are, with the ability for us to use multiple channels, that might actually be a reasonable option for us for the purpose of exercising radio communication within the parameters that we're expecting. I will also put the question out there, if you are expecting to bring any gear, what that might be. Not just what you've got back at the armory, but what will you be bringing to the conference, if anything at all. And that will help us to do the planning to figure out what gear, if any, we need to bring, what we might need to share so that everybody is able to play a role in the communication exercise. Some of the things that we are expecting that we are going to be doing is to coordinate with a live HF net. We in Ohio have one that runs every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday every week. And the Saturday and Sunday sessions start at 1300 local time, which we'll take a look at the schedule for the exercise, means that while we are conducting a significant portion of the COMEX, we are going to have players from off-site on HF exchanging information and part of our exercise play. So that should be pretty interesting. I'm also expecting that we're going to have a live feed into the exercise room so that we are able to see what's happening and to hear what's happening on HF. Even though we don't have an HF antenna and whatnot there, we'll be showing how that fits with everything, and we can see the system of the different types of communications that we've got going on and how they all complement one another for the purpose of being able to support the mission underway. So with respect to our training focus, we talked a little bit about what kind of gear we had, what people were using in our call of the 12th of September. It looks like that everybody has a bunch of different types of gear when you get down to the business of what sort of transceiver you're working with, a few common things. And some of you guys are working with stuff that makes me extremely jealous. You've got individual transceivers that cost more than all of my radio stuff put together. So I'm totally jealous, but that's all right. We can make things work with anything if we apply enough ingenuity, I suppose. What we want to emphasize is what is going to be common. So the FL Digi application and the suite of applications that work with it, they cover a large array of different radio types. And so that gives us a nice platform for us to interface and for our exercise to show an interface to the users that is going to be common without regard to what type of radio you're actually working with. So we're going to focus our digital activity around that interface and those applications. We want for our communications to be very mission focused. So we're going beyond radio checks, making sure that gear works, making sure that we can get onto certain frequencies and so on. The question is going to be, what does the mission need? And how will we in communications, how will we in signal make sure that that mission is going to work? So to make that happen, we're going to talk about the integration of communications plans and PACE plans in particular to an operating order, and to make sure that we do have the ability for command and control to have that communication necessary to work. That means that for our training, we're going to be doing some mission analysis. We're going to be planning our communication circuits. We're going to be making a network that will fit the needs of the mission before us. We are then going to move on to the point where we are capturing and relaying messages by radio. So we are going to make use of the network that we just planned and just stood up. As Mr. Martino pointed out earlier on, we want to use the crawl, walk, run methodology. This is one that we have seen. The Army publications for training show this over and over again, and that's exactly what we're going to be using here. We have to fit within the schedule that has been put before us at the conference, which has a start time of 0800. And on Saturday, the day that we're doing the COMEX, we need to wrap that up at 1500 because there's going to be some other activity that follows afterward. So the way that we're going to make this work is we're going to start with class. We'll start at 0800. We'll run for just shy of 2 hours, and that is going to look at the operation of a command post. We're going to look at how a command post supports elements that are on site with it, and how that command post is able to talk with other command posts, the sorts of functions that need to be performed there, and how they vary and how they differ depending on mission needs, as well as what they need to do to support those forward elements who don't have all of the same sophisticated gear that you can put in place at a command post. Starting at 1000, we will move on to lane training. When we get into lane training, we're going to look specifically at the workspace that we have there at the conference, where people are going to be able to operate, the kinds of tasks that they're going to be able to perform, and we are going to walk through those processes. So using the context, the information that we got about conceptually how do things work, we'll take that next block and actually walk through and have people perform those functions at a very slow pace, giving everybody the ability to come up to an even operating position so that we can construct a network for the purpose of communication in support of our mission. Toward the end of that window, we're going to have to deal with lunch and all of that sort of thing. My strong desire is to sort this out ahead of time. We'll probably ask for lunch orders and whatnot early in the morning, figure out a way to get lunch brought in, because if we have everybody breaking for lunch on their own and they're out going somewhere, they're driving around Dayton, it's just, we're not going to get anybody back for an hour or more. I don't want to deal with that. We have a full day of training. I want to make the most of it. So while we're sorting that out, bringing lunch in, we're going to have assignments made for people in various teams, the positions that they're going to be playing in the teams, making sure that they all understand what those things look like, so that at 12:30, we'll begin the comics. Our command posts are going to be in operation. Our forward elements are going to be on foot. The idea is that our elements are going to originate, that is to receive a message and turn it into a radio message for transmission. They're going to deliver messages, which is to say to receive them by radio and give them to somebody who needs to act upon the information. And they're going to be using the CPs for support to make sure that that works. The CPs are going to be in a stationary operating position, and the CPs will need to talk to one another. So when we go through all of that, we will at the end have a hot wash, what worked, what didn't work, what kind of takeaways do we have. The goal that we have with this exercise is that when we get to the end of the day, the participants will have done the work of making Signal support the mission. It's very easy for us in Signal, whether it's with radio or with computers or whatever, to get so engrossed in the technology and the whiz-bang flim-flam thing that we forgot the purpose of why we're there. We're there for a mission. We are not there for a science experiment. So class is going to show how to make a network. The lane training is going to show how to use it. And the COMEX is going to give us the operational experience needed to be able to make sense of that and to apply it to the work that we have once we go back home and get back on mission. We've got some parameters that we're going to be using for operation of this exercise, and that is we have players that are going to be at workstations. They're going to be simulating as though they're at separate CPs. We're not expecting that we're going to have a half a dozen rooms that we're occupying, each of which is its own CP. We're not expecting that a CP is going to be fully staffed and we've got our operations and our intelligence and signal and logistics and so on. What we're going to have is a room where we can put somebody in a position, and you are the command post for Team Alpha, and you are the signal position for Alpha, and the rest of it's just not going to be there. A little bit further down, I'm anticipating we're going to have somebody sitting there, and you are the command post for Bravo. And the same situation, the same configuration, a little further down will be Charlie, and so on, for however many teams we need to have active. The command posts, obviously being that close together, people are going to be able to see each other. They are going to be able to hear each other. But we're going to try and minimize that as much as possible. The idea is that they are in separate locations. So for the purpose of exercise play, they can't hear each other. They can't see each other. No giving hand signals to one another to get messages. We're going to have to use the system that's been put before us. We are going to have at those workstations, at those simulated command posts, we're expecting that they are going to have voice communication with their elements. So there's going to be handheld radios, whatever they wind up being. We're going to have some players who are part of, say, Team Alpha, and they're talking to the command post for Team Alpha. They can talk with each other. However, the people that are working on the voice circuit for Team Alpha do not have the ability to talk directly to Team Bravo. They are in different locations, and those circuits are not meant to go from one site to another. That requires that when something is coming up from the field in Team Alpha, it's got to go up to the command post for Team Alpha. Once the Alpha command post has it, the Alpha command post is where that additional capability will exist for routing, moving over to Bravo or Charlie, or maybe to higher headquarters. In any case, that is the model that we're going to be using to ensure that our communication circuits mirror what we would have for command and control. Our command posts, obviously, in that case, are going to have to relay the messages. They're working those circuits. And so there's going to be some extra things that have to happen there. The way that we're going to make that work is that we're going to have a system whereby there's going to be some automated relay from command post to command post. The goal here is to get people to understand the concept of communication, to be able to focus on those fundamental tasks that you need to do in every of these missions, but not to get bogged down in a bunch of the more advanced stuff that gets into relaying and so on that you can run into in complex operations. So we're going to have some automation in place so that the command posts are able to move messages one to another. We are also going to be using that same mechanism for one of the command posts to have a real world connection to the HF net that is in operation. So we will be able to receive injects from the field, real places in and around Ohio, but not necessarily close to where we will be in Greene County is where some of those things are going to be coming in and where some of those things will be going. The way that we're going to make that work is with something that we are calling the TAC LAN. We have a tactical local area network. It's basically some basic workstations. They operate on a network that allows them to see as server. The systems that people are using, they can see the file server and they will see that there is a folder that is their position's inbox. So instead of having an email box where you get a bunch of messages that are all part of the same thing, you're looking at a folder, and that folder will have files put in it, and each of those files is a message for you. In the same way, when you are sending a message out, you'll be creating the message, you'll be putting it into the right place so that it can be routed so that the other command post will be able to see that. So we're going to automate some of those things, and that is going to allow us to stay focused on the business of originating and relaying the messages rather than get bogged down in the mechanics of how you can choose one option or another as you move messages among command posts. Our CP players, the command post players, they're going to have their hands full because on the one hand, they're doing the voice communication with their teams. On the other hand, they are also working with the other command posts. If time allows and the interest exists among players, what I'd really like to do is have an opportunity to rotate so that people can play the role both of the command post operator as well as somebody who's in an element that's forward. That means our field players who are in the who are using the handhelds, they're going to be able to get out to wander around and so on. And for them to be able to get some messages that fit with the exercise scenario that we're working with, we've got some interesting tools that we're going to be using, one of which is video. These are first-person perspective videos where a radio operator is looking at talking to a doctor or to an emergency manager who has information that needs to be relayed. and that information must be relayed by radio. I'm going to give a quick example of what that actually sounds like. This will take just a few seconds, but gives you an idea of what the experience will be for that person in the field, what information they have to capture, and how they're going to have to relay that up to a command post.
Okay, so I've got a triage report for you to send. We've got red 17, yellow 24, green 2, black 7. That's it.
And so for each of these videos, they're all different, and they cover different types of scenarios, and they also play off of one another. So we might have a thread of videos that deals with, in one case, let's say a toxicology incident. We'll have something that's coming from a doctor who's asking for information, trying to consult with maybe a toxicologist, a specialist who's at another site. They don't have communication, so they're going to have to use radio messaging to get that consultation done. There's a video on the other side that is the toxicologist who is able to receive the message, make sense of it, and to send a reply. So in this way, we're going to have things that require radio operators to engage with terminology that they don't necessarily understand. They're going to have to use words they're not familiar with. We'll spell them out in the video so they don't have to guess at how to spell one of these, 15-letter medical terms. But it does give them some realism in terms of getting a voice communication, capturing it, and correctly relaying it. We'll have several different scenarios that are going on all at the same time. So teams Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta can all be working with each other in some sense, in that we are providing circuits for an environment where we've lost communication infrastructure, but they aren't all necessarily all at the same place working exactly the same problem. Our job is to provide the communication circuits. We'll also have instructions for the players about how to address the messages and whatnot, so that there won't be any ambiguity about how that's supposed to happen. So from there, we can take a look at what goes into preparation. And it looks like I've lost network. So here we are showing that I am, in fact, practicing the PACE plan. What we have is a number of tasks that we can go through that will allow us to see the path for us to succeed. We've got 9 specific tasks that we have identified, and when I follow up and I send the deck around, you're going to see what those are. Most of those actually come from U.S. Army manuals, whether it's going to be from the Soldier's Manual of Common Tasks, or whether it's from the 25 Charlie MOS. There's only 9 of them. We're going to let everybody know what they are ahead of time. There are a couple of them that are modified or that are new, but fit the mission profile that we have in the state of Ohio, which does in fact fit nicely with the scenario that we're working with. So we are going to use those. That's going to be a basis upon which we are able to assess how we are doing with respect to covering the fundamentals of the communication that we need to address, and making sure that we've given everybody a good experience in seeing how to operate in an environment where communication infrastructure has been compromised, and yet there is a mission that needs to be done. The more that we put into it, the more that we're going to get out of it. So we are going to be making sure that we give you everything that you need to have a good operating experience. We're hoping that we're going to have many people who are engaged, who are going to be able to see not just how we can set up a radio network, but how we're able to make use of it, what that means for us in terms of command and control. So with that, we've got a few minutes at the end. I just want to pause and see, are there any questions on anything that I've covered today?
Hey, Chief, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Go ahead.
Mr. Martinez speaking. So, great format. This is really neat stuff. Are we, so the folks who will not be in attendance, physically in Ohio, So when you're having the classroom instruction, stuff like that, that'll all be simulcasted virtually through Zoom, I guess.
If that's going to be something that's provided by the conference, that would be great. If that's something that we need to provide, we'll make that work. It'll probably be by Google Meet, just because that's what I have readily available. I've got a commercial account, but we can make that work. So if you're telling me that we need to provide that, that's good information, and I'll make sure we do it.
Yeah, fair enough. Because I don't know, like even myself, I will not be in Ohio. So, and any of the folks that we have on a New York Guard side, if they can take advantage of that remotely. The second question I have for you is that, of course, in the same venue of folks who aren't going to be there physically, who will be operating via HF radio, you'll be able to pipe them into the program through remote communication links. Over.
Yeah, what we're going to have is three different things. Thing number one is we're just going to use a Kiwi SDR to tune in to the freak that we're going to be operating. We're going to use one of the 5 megahertz interop channels. So if we have anybody that wants to operate as shares, they may do so. If we've got amateur operators in there, they'll be able to do that as well. So that 5 megahertz middle of the day is good coverage for the state of Ohio. So that's why we actually choose to operate there. So we'll be able to have that audio coming in with Kiwi SDR. The second thing is that I'm going to have my home station will be tuned in on our operating frequency, and I will have a running log of everything that is coming in. So any text, any digital that we have, any print will actually be something we can display on a screen as well. And then the third thing is that we're actually going to have one of the stations, the gateway station at the facility, is going to be on WinLink. So that means that our gateway for the site to the HF net is going to be done by WinLink. Any of the players who want to participate, but they can't because they're not physically there. So in New York, for example, if you've got a WinLink station, then we will also be able to have you engaged in exercise play. It's just that you'll be your own CP, not at the site, and that you'll have to use WinLink for that messaging back and forth.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, that would be great. So on the WinLink side, we can operate as share stations using WinLink. Is it going to be VARA you're going to use on the WinLink side? Over.
It doesn't matter. We're going to be using the radio mail servers. So the whole point is to allow people to operate at the level that is going to be the user interface that they're comfortable with, and they're going to be making use of whatever infrastructure is there. So if you relay through radio mail server, it doesn't matter what you're doing. We're not doing peer-to-peer. We are working through the radio mail system.
Okay, no, that's good. So it doesn't matter how I get it to you through whoever picks it up, it'll still get routed to you on WinLink.
Yep, exactly. And even that way, we could have players in, if they don't have their radio set up, they could come in with Telnet even. We really don't care. The idea is not to be so fixated on the specifics of the radio, but more about the radio network and its role in making sure that C2 is effective.
No, roger that. Okay, so that's good to know. So they can, the people who aren't attending can come in through virtually to get in on the classroom instruction. And if we're operating remotely, whether it's Telnet WinLink or actual radio WinLink, we can do that also.
Yep, absolutely.
How will you work the FL Digi stuff remotely? Will you be able to take any of that in over HF as well?
That's what we'll have the HF net in operation for. So there are stations that will be able to receive and to send on HF with FL Digi, and they'll relay it in by WinLink. We will also have FL message up on every one of the command post systems on site. And so they won't necessarily know what things are happening behind the scenes. Some of it is going to be some wireless stuff that is happening at very high frequency. It's going to be up in 5 gigahertz territory. And in other cases, it might get routed over HF. The command post operators don't know. It's actually something we're handling at a lower level. They can stay focused on the radio messaging component.
All right, no, that's fantastic. I'll get with some folks on my end because we have a few shares call signs in New York SDF, about 6 or 7 of them. So there should be enough for them to go around, whether they want to telnet or they can get up on the air.
Yep. Fantastic.
Yep.
All right, we are out of time. So anybody who needs to leave, feel free to do so. If you've got any other questions, I can keep us open for just a couple more minutes. All right, sounds like we're taken care of. I will be following up by email. Thank you all for joining today, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Chief. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.